Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Wednesday, March 22nd, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. The Missouri Tigers reached the second round of the NCAA Tournament and were upset by Princeton, but there was nothing upsetting about Mizzou's season. The Tigers were picked to finish 11th in the SEC. They became the number 4 seed in the league tournament and reached the semifinals for the first time. Missouri also won its first NCAA tournament game in more than a decade when it knocked off Utah State, a betting favorite, in the first round. In all, an excellent season in Columbia for Dennis Gates in his first year as the Tigers head coach. On today's SportsBeat KC, Star columnists Vahe, Gregorian, and Sam McDowell discuss Mizzou's season and where the program goes from here, especially from a recruiting standpoint. Okay, let's get started. We all went to first and second round games of the NCAA tournament and covered teams that felt, I guess their feelings ran the gamut of emotions. The team I covered is flying high, Kansas State. Vahe, the team that you covered, is feeling pretty good about itself and the season that they had. And we're going to talk about the Missouri Tigers. And then Sam McDowell goes up to Des Moines and brings back an L with the Kansas Jayhawks. So his college basketball season is about over.
I like how it's on Sam's ledger, and it really has nothing to do with our place and time.
No. That was a tough one for the Jayhawks. And we spoke with Gary Bedore and Shreyas Laddha about that on yesterday's SportsBeat KC, so I will refer you to that. But let's talk about the Missouri Tigers today. Vahe, I was looking this up in Missouri's basketball history. The first year of Conzo Martin, the Tigers went to the NCAA tournament. That was the Michael Porter Jr. year. And the first year of Frank Haith, Missouri went to the NCAA tournament. That was the great fun regular season, right? The team that ended up losing to Norfolk State, but so much fun in the regular season. The first year of Mike Anderson, they didn't go to the NCAA tournament, but they turned around their team. They won 18 games, and everybody felt good about the future. The first year of Quinn Snyder, they went to the NCAA tournament. So a lot of success in first seasons of coaches at Missouri. Why did this one feel a little different, or was it? What was it about this season that, after a loss, you feel like, there's some encouragement here?
Yeah, I'm glad you say that and you felt like that too, because I felt like I couldn't get past that being the overarching thing of the season. It's sort of multifold, but I think start with an entire different team. I mean, 9 new guys and just sort of the freshness that comes with that. More than doubling their victory total. And I think also, Blair, coming out of a longer period of just sort of doldrums than we've seen in a long time from Missouri. The stat that came to mind for me was that having not won an NCAA tournament game since 2010, Missouri was in the longest streak of winless postseason NCAA streak since the time between 1944 and 1976. That was the longest since then, and nowhere near as much, right? But it
right.
Spoke a little bit to how a program that was a more or less perennial NCAA tournament team is just not doing anything. So the very fact that they won an NCAA tournament game, I think, was pretty vital in this feeling too. I think if Missouri loses that first round game to Utah State, you still feel like it's a turnaround season and great, they planted the flag a little bit, but I don't think you're feeling like, they broke through. And in this case, I do feel like they had a little bit of a breakthrough. I do think, some people are thinking, well, Princeton, Ivy League team, 15th seed, how do you lose to them? And we can talk about that, but I think Princeton's a really good team. I would not be surprised to see Princeton beat Creighton. But anyway, I regress, I digress.
No. So that was a long stretch for the Tigers without an NCAA tournament victory, and in a time when, look, from 1944 until 1976, the tournament was only for conference champions. It was, it grew from maybe 8 or 12 to like 20 or maybe 20, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was pretty difficult. So in this drought where that Missouri found itself in, not saying it was easy to get to the tournament or win tournament games, but there was more opportunity for teams to do that.
For sure, that's
and they
right.
had failed over the last decade plus.
Yeah, and I think that, if I'm thinking this through in my head right, that makes this sort of all the more of a problematic streak, and also all the more so when basketball matters in a different way, and also when basketball really needed to matter for a team that a school that in some ways got in the SEC for its basketball program. I mean, certainly there was a lot of thought that Missouri would enhance the SEC in basketball and had not won an NCAA tournament game since joining the SEC till then. So I think that's another part of why this registered. I think also, I'd be interested to know if you guys feel the same way. I am quite struck by Dennis Gates' ability to connect with his players, whether it was in recruiting or the remarkable calmness he shows during games. I'm not sure I've seen a guy more sort of just restrained in his movements and gestures and thoughts during the game than Dennis Gates in recent years. And it stands out all the more with him being one of the last few to wear a suit, right? It's just interesting how that goes, and I think it shows you on many levels that you don't have to do it the way everybody's doing it.
You've mentioned that before, that the way he's connected with players. I'll take it a step further and say he connected with older players, experienced players. It wasn't like a bunch of freshmen where you suspect you've sweet-talked them into coming to your school, although that happened to some extent with transfers. Maybe part of it was he took guys from non-major programs and gave them the opportunity to play at this level, and there was just a feeling of appreciation on the part of Demoy Hodge and Noah Carter and everybody else who transferred in, and that helped bond them and strengthen the connection between coach and player.
I think you're right, and I think you spoke about this early in the season, and I can't remember exactly how you framed it, but the notion of this being a little bit of a blueprint or demonstration of what can be cultivated through basically mid-major recruiting of mid-major schools for this team. I mean, only Nick Honor, coming in from Clemson, was at a so-called Power 5 or Power 6 school. Everybody else, there were 7 other transfers, 5 from mid-majors and 2 from junior colleges. So now, a thing I thought I had the other day is that this all seems to portend good stuff, but we have seen some one-hit wonders in terms of results. Somebody who comes in, strikes fast. Frank Haith is actually an interesting example. That team that Frank Haith took over from Mike Anderson, that was one of the most just enjoyable, cohesive, great basketball teams I can remember seeing until they played at Norfolk State.
They had a bad matchup.
But that was a wonderful team. And then, what seemed to prove to be the case with Frank was that he did really well with the guys he inherited, fusing them together. And, within a couple of years, he was looking to get out before he got pushed out. So I don't think that's going to be the case with Dennis Gates, but I guess it should give us pause to see that these sorts of breakthroughs have to be now demonstrated to be able to develop consistency. And I think that most Missouri fans would be disappointed if they thought this was the ceiling instead of the baseline.
It's a different era, though. I mean, the fact that the way the transfer portal works now and how many guys are willing to enter that, and sort of, you mentioned it, Blair, I mean, he's collected guys who thought they could play at this level who were not given that opportunity until he allowed it, and he took advantage of that. And this team, unlike those teams you mentioned of these past coaches, was his team. I mean, he did have Kobe Brown, which was a gigantic leftover. But my guess is he probably had to recruit Kobe Brown all over again, too, because he had that option where a lot of the guys probably didn't really feel like when they had a new coach that wasn't their first thought, is where am I going to go then? When my coach just left, where am I going to go? That is the thought of a lot of players now when their coach leaves. So I'm guessing he had to re-recruit Kobe Brown. And a lot of these guys we're talking about, when you go through the guys that played a lot of big minutes for him are his guys. Now, what's going to be really interesting moving forward is if he recruited that type of team because he had to fill out a roster, or whether that's how he envisions building a team at Missouri. You'd like to see, the team I just covered has a lot of guys who have been there for a long time. Jalen Wilson was there 3 years. You go back and look at last year's KU team, and David McCullough and Ochai Agbaji and Christian Brown were all there for 3 or 4 years. And I think that's what leads to the next level of success that Missouri wasn't able to get to this year. And that's going to require getting some high school kids to buy into a philosophy and stick through it.
I love the distinction you made, because even though I do think we need to see it over time, I think it's a almost inverse situation with the first Frank Haith season and the first one of Dennis. You're right that these are the guys he had to bring in, but also had to get bought in. And Kobe was a bit of a special case. 9 players had gone in the portal, and Kobe and Caleb Brown were considering it, and he was able to meet with them and their parents, and that meeting did re-recruit him and convince him to stay. So I think that's a really great point, that this was Dennis's team in ways that weren't necessarily applicable to the first Frank Haith season.
Yeah, but as Sam said, that's the world of college basketball today.
Yeah.
And the recruiting means, doing what you've always done, go to camps and you look at the high school, the guys are in high school and prep schools. But even more than that, it means recruiting off of someone else's roster, which Dennis Gates in Missouri did in a major way this past year. Is it sustainable for a program? Did they get lucky this year? Did they have the right guys? Was it the right chemistry? I don't know. It seemed like he recruited or landed a bunch of positionless players, threw them out there. That's why they weren't a great rebounding team, because there wasn't a natural big guy as part of this group. But they could shoot, and they were good athletes. They could get up and down the floor, score, and I thought in the first NCAA tournament game against Utah State, there was definitely a class difference. Watching Missouri's athletes against Utah State's athletes, and oddly enough, Utah State was a betting favorite in that game.
Yeah.
I just remember thinking, you and I were talking about it last week. I'm not sure why that is, but it was apparent to me as that game unfolded in the second half. Missouri was just clearly the better team with the better athletes.
They are they played a little bit like a mid-major type of style. I know Dennis Gates made that comment after they beat Tennessee, like, how's that for a mid-major? And I didn't think that was the critique that I guess he probably took and wanted his guys to absorb that as criticism.
Mm-hmm.
But it was sort of like a mid-major all-star team. And to me, that's not a criticism. Like, that can be complimentary if you use it that way, because they played that style.
Yeah.
And so when you try and forecast whether this is sustainable, first of all, I think it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be exhausting, first of all, to feel like every offseason you have to completely reform your team. Like, that's going to be exhausting. You want a lot of holdovers that know your system, know your culture. Like, there's a significant benefit to that. But I would think other mid-major kids that are in a similar position of like, man, I just want to play Power 5 basketball. Somebody give me a chance. They probably would look at the way Missouri played, and it's not just the fast-paced nature, but Dennis Gates gives those guys a lot of freedom to shoot. There's not, to your point earlier, Vahe, about the calm demeanor, that applies not just to the referees, but to his own guys, too.
Yeah.
And it's not just, hey, we're down 12, I'm in panic mode. It's also, there's not a lot of yelling. When you go watch a KU game, you sit courtside, Bill Self is yelling almost every play.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's criticism of something his own guy screwed up 3 possessions ago. He still remembers it, and he wants the player to make sure he knows that, hey, you screwed up that play 3. Like, you don't see that from Dennis Gates, and I would just think that a lot of Bill Self's got the credibility. He's a Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah.
The success speaks for itself. Dennis Gates might need to recruit a little bit on just the brand of basketball they play and just the enjoyment of playing on that roster.
It's a great, interesting thing to bring up Bill and Dennis Gates, because, Blair, I know you spoke with Leonard Hamilton a few months ago about was leading into the Missouri-Kansas game.
Yeah.
And I spoke with him a little time before that, and I can't remember exactly Leonard's words either to you or me, but basically he sees a lot of Bill in Dennis and vice versa. I've had other people say that to me, and what's kind of fascinating though is that personas are completely different on the court. There's no relationship at all there. One last thing about Dennis, and can you replicate this? Sam's right about it being exhausting to have to replicate that many. You hope for their sake that 5, 6, 7 will stick now, and maybe there'll be some flow and just baseline foundation establishment with that. Be great for them if Kobe comes back, but one thing he probably can't count on all the time will be he brought in 3 guys from Cleveland State. I believe the sequence is a little off in my head, but he also had recruited Colston. You're starting to look at him when Dennis was an assistant at Florida State, and then it was just kind of bad timing, and he ended up at Milwaukee instead of Cleveland State. But those are 4 guys that Dennis kind of already, was in some sort of unison with. So that is a little bit of the magic of this season, but also a thing that obviously he has other relationships with other people he recruited, but he had a head start in certain ways on some of these.
Well, and Sean East, too, was the point guard for Kyle Smith-Peters' team in junior college, and, of course, Smith-Peters joined the Missouri staff this year. So there were connections. That's how you play the game, right?
Yeah.
In recruiting. It's all about connections. I want to go back to something you said just about roster composition, and it occurs to me that Kansas and Bill Self, you see a lot of recruiting of freshmen who grow through the program, and that's a hallmark of a Bill Self program. A player like Abaji, a player like Devontae Graham, Frank Mason, guys that just get better through the program, and you have to have that. You do, and I think we're going to see that with Aiden Shaw for Missouri, the lone freshman on this team. Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There is Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all of the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening. I've got 4 or 5 points in my head here. I got to sort them all out because I wanted to go back to something you said about his on-court demeanor, Sam. I do remember a game in which either Golston or Demoy Hodge took a shot early in the shot clock, and it was bad. It was deep 3-point attempt, and it was one of those that bounced over the backboard and out of bounds. You think, what a lousy shot. And as the game continued, that player went over to the Missouri. Gage called him over to the Missouri sideline and put his arms on his shoulder. It's you could just see him shaking his head like, "Is that the shot we want? No, it is not."
Perfect.
And I thought, okay, there's some on-court coaching going on.
Yeah. I don't mean to suggest he's neglectful. I mean, I just think he's taken a different approach to communicating.
Right.
That's great. Is that how you would coach, Blair?
Is that the shot we want? No, it is not. Let's try to improve there. Okay, and then let's connect a previous point. I don't think Kansas has the success it's had over the last couple of years without Kevin McCullough this year, the transfer from Texas Tech, that they're going to have for 1 year. And the season before that, Remy Martin comes off the bench and an all Pac-12 player and gives Kansas instant offense in the second half of the national championship. They don't win the national championship without that guy. So I actually think Kansas has done a really nice job of infusing the transfers and identifying a type of player that they need. Defensive specialists in McCullough, instant offense in Remy Martin, both helped in a big way for those teams. And that's kind of like what I want to see Missouri do.
Well, to Sam's point about to get to the next tier, I think maybe Sam could say it better than I can say it for him, but that was what you meant, right? You get to this place where you're getting a couple of those guys to be that over-the-top next step, but you've got your core.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Self goes in and out and recruits the transfer portal, which with he fills holes through the transfer portal. Dennis Gates last year, again, because he had to, he was put in that position, just had to collect some guys, and then he had to see how they might fit in. And, yeah, I mean, you've got to develop an Aiden Shaw toward by his junior year. You're building around Aiden Shaw.
Yep.
And there's a big difference to that. I mean, KU builds around, I've long thought as much as, KU probably has a one-and-done player this year with Grady Dick. They get more value out of the guys who were there for 3 or 4 years because, first of all, they get them for 3 or 4 years instead of one. But by their 3rd or 4th year, they're better than those one-and-dones. Not more talented, but they're better for a college basketball player. I mean, those guys that we just mentioned, the Frank Masons, Devontae Graham, Ochai, Christian Brown, none of those guys were highly recruited. They're not as highly recruited as Grady Dick was, and they get more value out of those guys.
All of their seasons ended in the Final Four of the region championship game. Grady Dick's ended in the second round. Josh Jackson's ended in the regional final. Andrew Wiggins ended in the second round.
Yeah, Embiid in the same.
Yep.
Listen, that is a great point. When you put those up against each other just like that, that's a great point.
Well, especially if you're building your team around that freshman. And they're not a complementary player, but they're your leading scorer, right?
Yeah.
And in most cases, that was Grady Dick was second to Jalen Wilson this year. So, yeah. I also, how about the idea that Dennis Gates and Jerome Tang at Kansas State have just ruined it for athletic directors across the country. Now, there is no reason to believe you hire a coach, he can't be in the NCAA tournament his first year, no matter what or how little success your program had the previous year, right?
Yeah.
Missouri was picked 11th in the SEC. Kansas State was picked 10th and last in the Big 12. K-State's in the Sweet 16. Dennis Gates just had a phenomenal season, just ended. So, no excuses. And both coaches. Now, look, they each had an important player coming back, Marquise Noel for Kansas State, but not. I didn't see this guy last year, Marquise Noel, and Kobe Brown. His numbers improved tremendously. Became a really good 3-point shooter this year. So, you make the right hire. There's no reason at all your program with an infusion of talent and cannot be a successful team the next year.
You're right, and doing it, when the coin of the realm is the new world order of transfer portal and NIL, like working within that, they're sort of among the first two to do this well this fast, and I don't know, it's too early in it to see if this has an impact on somehow faster yet moving people out of jobs if they don't make a turn.
Right,
but
right.
I mean, look what they just did. I mean, so that's an interesting point for sure.
Absolutely. The fairly I almost said it. I almost said fairly ridiculous. The Fairleigh Dickinson team was four and whatever last year, and they pulled up and new coach pulled off the upset of the
new coach from D2, right?
Yep.
D2, who was another Ben McCollum victim at some point.
Yep. Who, by the way, really needs to get a Division I job.
Wichita State's open.
Yes, it is. I've thrown that out there. Ben McCollum to Wichita State. They haven't made the hire yet.
By the way, the best part of the Fairleigh Dickinson thing is that they didn't even win their conference tournament because what was it, Merrimack that was not yet fully certified.
Right.
So they celebrated when they won their semifinal for the conference tournament.
That's right. They were the runner-up, just like Miss America in this case. If the winner could not fulfill the duties, the runner-up gets to go. That's what happens. So, anyway.
Man.
Any other good first weekend tournament impressions? Anything?
Well, just you mentioned Marquise Noel, not seeing that guy last year. My jaw was just open the whole time watching him yesterday or Sunday.
I'm glad you watched it, because if you haven't watched it, just go to YouTube and type in Marquise Noel highlights.
It was just unreal.
He made 5 or 6 plays in a game that if you saw once during the season, you'd talk about it all year.
Yeah.
He was the behind the back assist,
and then between the legs assist, and like 5 no-look things
looks,
I saw.
Yeah.
I saw that. I didn't get to watch the clip, but I saw that there was a clip. They ran some bubble screen that they credited to Patrick Mahomes. But
inbounds play.
But his whole game, I thought, was Mahomes.
Very Mahomes-like.
Isn't that what we would see Patrick be like out there? Except for a little taller, the little guy.
They were fun, and what a great victory for Kansas State over Kentucky. So Kentucky lost this year to Kansas State, Missouri, and Kansas. They did that in 2018 as well, and that was the year Kansas went to the Final Four with Marquise Noel or with Devontae Graham, that team. So look, Kentucky, kind of an ordinary team in both years. Really, they were a 5 seed in 2018, and they were a 6 seed this year. But it's just always something about beating a Kentucky team, I think, for one of our locals. It's attention grabbing.
It was big for Missouri early, right? When they were still kind of coming off that blasting by Kansas. Then they had really just a great game against Illinois. But then just days later, just handle Kentucky. By the way, you will know this off the top of your head, Blair, but first Sweet 16 without Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, Carolina. Seems like another blue blood I'm not thinking of, but
well, it happened 2 years ago.
It did in 21,
in the Indy tournament, the COVID tournament. But before that, it was 1972, maybe something like that.
Without all five, including Duke and Carolina,
Duke, Carolina, Kentucky, or Kansas.
Okay,
in the Sweet 16. So.
Anyway. Yeah, so I guess it's pretty common now, but
it happens all the time.
And look, but really, that makes the point a better point, like that. I don't know if you call it changing of the guard, but there's something a little different in college basketball where, it's not always the same suspects.
Doesn't have to be.
Or at least not to this point.
Right.
We'll narrow it down soon.
All right, that was Sam McDowell yawning, so that's our signal.
Hey, it's a rainy day. You just had to listen to me talk a little too much.
We just had a big lunch, so it's nap time here at the Star. Thanks, Vahe. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Blair.
That'll do it for today on SportsBeat KC. Thanks to our production staff of Randy Mason, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to Vahe Gregorian and Sam McDowell for sharing their insights. Morning Sports Edition was 43 pages full of NCAA men's and women's tournament coverage, good stuff from the World Baseball Classic, and so much more. Check it out at liveedition.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City every day.